They say with age comes wisdom.
And I think it's time for guys like me to get out of the way and have people in the next generation step forward.
But while that wisdom has its limits, the age maximum of the House, Senate, and presidency does not. And Senator Mitt Romney of Utah had something to say about it in his recent announcement that he won't be seeking re-election. It's a refreshing admission here. Take a look.
I've spent my last 25 years in public service of one kind or another. At the end of another term, I'd be in my mid-80s. Frankly, it's time for a new generation of leaders. They're the ones that need to make the decisions that will shape the world they will be living in.
Of all the careers to avoid retirement, politics may be one of the more dangerous. A study by the RAND Corporation's National Security Research Division pointed to dementia among high-ranking government officials as a potential threat to national security, raising a popular question in today's politics: how old is too old to keep valuable government secrets? 81-year-old Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky froze last month for a second time when asked his thoughts on running for re-election. Take a look.
What are your thoughts on running for re-election in 2026?
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
yes.
All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute.
Quite reasonably, public incidents like this are a bipartisan concern, and he's not the only one. Dianne Feinstein of California, oldest member of the Senate at 90, has shown her age not only physically after a return from a 2-month bout of shingles, but cognitively too, as this clip from a committee vote in July shows.
And it funds priorities submitted.
Yeah, just say aye.
Okay, just aye.
Thank you.
Feinstein, who doesn't plan to run for re-election, plans at least to serve out her term ending early 2025. But she may be a symptom of a growing trend towards gerontocracy. Gerontocracy, a state ruled by leaders significantly older than the population. Ancient Greece had one, and Plato said, "It is for the elder man to rule, and for the younger to submit." In the late 20th century, China's 8 immortals were a group of elderly men who held substantial power over the CCP. The irony wasn't lost on some, who would note that the 80-year-olds are calling meetings of 70-year-olds to decide which 60-year-olds should retire. Sound familiar? When it comes to presidents, the median age since 1900 has been 55.5. The same age as Tony Hawk or Guy Fieri. But advanced medical treatment and a generally uninspired pool of candidates has now left the same aging faces in the ballots. In 2016, Trump became the oldest president to ever be inaugurated at 70 years old. But when Biden won in 2020, he broke that record by a full 8 years. If he wins re-election in 2024, he'll be 86 by the time he leaves office. Unfortunately, his age is clear to see here in a press conference while visiting Vietnam this past week.
If you don't have a game plan. He may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed. Yeah, we talked about at the conference overall. We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the third world, the Southern Hemisphere had access to chemical.
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
With an average age of 64, the Senate has one of the oldest memberships of any parliamentary body in the world. The 2022 midterms may have seen the Senate age up, but the House's median age managed to reduce from 58.9 to 57.9. 4 senators and 11 House members have passed 80, down from 7 and 14 before. The number of Congress members over 70 dropped from around a quarter to just under a fifth, thanks to 64% of new members aged under 40, including Maxwell Alejandro Frost, first Gen Z House member at 26. Meanwhile, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi may be 57 years his senior, but she's announced she'll run again in 2024 for her 19th term. So far, being medically cleared by a US Capitol doctor is good enough to go on with a day's work. As for Mitch McConnell, he's been cleared to return to the Senate, with Congress physician Brian Monahan suggesting these public pauses could be related to a concussion he suffered in March, or simply dehydration.
And so I think the best advice for the Senate is to do our job, and we'll see how this plays out later.
Concussion or not, these moments may have larger implications for national security, since McConnell is a member of the Gang of Eight, the high-ranking leaders privy to America's classified intelligence. That study on dementia and government secrets says individuals who hold or held a security clearance and handled classified material could become a security threat if they develop dementia and unwittingly share government secrets. And the American public tends to agree with this summation. In polls, 3/4 of Americans are down with an age limit for elected officials. 77% think Biden's too old to get his job done. But then, it doesn't seem to reflect that when it comes to voting. Age hasn't hindered Trump in his campaign for the Republican presidential nomination either, leading way ahead of competitor Ron DeSantis, who at 45 is young enough to be Trump's son. An age limit may seem like the solution, but it's not quite that simple. While a minimum age was established in the Constitution, a maximum age limit doesn't feature. And it's not a new conversation. In 1995, Arkansas tried to deny ballot access to representatives after serving 3 terms and senators after serving 2 terms.
Open up the political process to new people and new ideas and make it to where no one can really monopolize a seat of political power.
And the court ruled that since the Constitution doesn't mention any such limits, they had no intention to make them. Until a decision can be made, it's up to the public to make their own mind up on how much age really matters in an aging population. Because if you're thinking politicians will make that decision themselves, I'll just say this. Passing the torch at 76, Romney is an anomaly.
Why would you not wish to run for re-election?
I considered my age and the fact that at the end of a second term I would be in my mid-80s. And I think it's time for guys like me to get out of the way and have people in the next generation step forward, because they're going to be shaping the world they're going to be living in. And over the last a couple of decades, people of my age, the boomers, have done pretty well for ourselves. We voted for all sorts of benefits and programs for us, and we haven't paid for them. And I think some of the people that are coming along next want to have a say in how we leave the earth and how they prepare for the future they're going to live in.
As a would-be vocal Trump critic, did you feel like with him likely being on the ballot next year, it would give you trouble running for re-election?
There was a recent poll in Utah which had me showing some very strong numbers. I was very pleased to see that. I think the people in Utah don't all agree with me on the posture I took with regards to Donald Trump, but they respect people who vote their conscience, and I appreciate that in my fellow citizens. And I don't have any question in my mind that if I'd have run again, I just don't think that we need another person in their 80s. I'm a little long of tooth already. We don't need more like me. The issues of the day relate to China, climate change, AI, and a lot of guys in their 80s who know how to deal with those issues.
You mentioned your age as one of the reasons for not running for re-election. Is that a nice way to say to some of your colleagues who are older that maybe it's time for them to step down as well?
Well, everybody's going to make their own decision, of course, and consider their own circumstances. I just looking at my age and where I am, I wish, if I knew that I was going to be like Chuck Grassley and be able to be vigorous and dynamic into my 90s, I might have reached a different decision, but you never know. But I do think that the times we're living in really demand the next generation to step up and express their point of view, and to make the decisions that will shape our American politics over the coming century. And just having a bunch of guys that were around, the baby boomers, who were around in the post-war era, we're not the right ones to be making the decisions for tomorrow.
I wonder if you can speak to where the Republican Party is now. When you look at the Republican Party, particularly where the House of Representatives is, do you feel like this is a Republican Party that is beholden to former President Donald Trump?
Well, there's no question but that the Republican Party today is in the shadow of Donald Trump. He is the leader of the greatest portion of the Republican Party. It's a populist, I believe, demagogue portion of the party. Look, I represent a small wing of the party, if you will. I call it the wise wing of the Republican Party. And I don't believe we're going away. I think ultimately we'll see a resurgence and come back into leadership of the party. Look, my wing of the party talks about policy and about issues that will make a difference to the lives of the American people. The Trump wing of the party talks about resentments of various kind and getting even and settling scores and revisiting the 2020 election. What are the policies for the future? And my party is only going to be successful getting young people to vote for us if we're talking about the future. And that's not happening so far in that other wing.
But Senator, aren't you going to lose that battle? People like you are fighting that wing of the party and stepping aside. And to add to that, you had said just that a lot of the party simply does not believe in the Constitution. What do you mean by that?
Well, I was in a rally where someone said to me, you know, if you're elected, this is when I was running for Senate last time, if you're elected, will you close down ABC, NBC, and CBS because they're not sending out the truth? And this was in a Republican rally, and I was like, really? I mean, there's no question. There's some portion of my party and the opposition party who thinks we need to have a strong person, a strong man, to put aside the Constitution. And for that matter, President Trump, former President Trump, said we should put aside the Constitution and reinstall him as president. I mean, so yeah, there are some people who believe that. I believe they're sorely wrong. I believe the great majority of American people believe that they're wrong. But in terms of what I'm going to be doing, look, I want to get more young people voting and involved in the political process, and that's something I'm going to devote myself to after the next year and a half when I spend it.
Senator Romney.